I heard oil change, and that's cool. You know, my car's right out there, and it could use it. They're expensive nowadays.
And some tires too.
Yeah, oh, well, the tires. Thank you everybody for coming out. Jason, thank you for putting out such a welcome that you have here, and a couple of people that I brought with me that I think are important to know as well. They're going to be with me throughout my campaign. First and foremost is my campaign manager right there, Virrueta. And my consultant, Mr. Brian Higgins over there. So the districts did change, and they did change actually for the better. For at least for me, is because, and I'll tell you a little bit why, specifically where I live. Originally, Santa Cruz, if you look at kind of Santa Cruz the way it is here, Santa Cruz, Monterey, and Big Sur, along the peninsula. That's where John Laird was. He resides in Santa Cruz, okay? If you go all the way down the 101 corridor, all the way down to Arroyo Grande, that is how far District 17 is going to go to. To the right, the finger off is going to be San Benito County, over there where Hollister is. I live in South Monterey County myself. I live in Soledad, about 45 minutes from here. You're going to see a lot more of me. This is my backyard. This South Monterey County is my backyard, so you will see that. And ladies and gentlemen, I heard a couple comments as far as the attendance. We make do with what we have, and I'm glad you're here. We're going to have a great meeting tonight. I'm looking forward to. So thank you for taking the time to come out. I appreciate that. Every day counts that we have here. And right now, right here is where I want to be. And Jason, thanks for putting this together a couple of months ago. Came up quickly, and I'm glad I've got a chance to brush up and polish a couple of things. And as I go farther along my campaign, I will as well. So let me tell you a little bit about where I mentioned. I've already made some great friends over here. Everybody knows Kenny Ennie, as you know that. We met early on when I first decided to run. My wife and I, as a matter of fact, went and had dinner with him and Sharon and out into his ranch, and he invited me to do some pig hunting, which I don't know if I have that in me anymore, but we maybe someday, then we'll have a big barbecue afterwards. But Kenny, similar to myself, served in the military proudly. Kenny is a Marine, and we kind of took shore the same cloth that we had different places that we were deployed. And also, recently here, just a couple of weeks ago, I came for the barbecue. And I was proud to announce at that point, after the barbecue leaving, that I did get the endorsement of our San Luis Obispo DA, Dan Dow. And that is big. That's gonna ripple not only here, but it's gonna ripple all the way into Monterey, Santa Cruz, and San Benito County, some of that. And speaking of small world, Dan Dow, he served in the Army, so we are veterans as well. But a little place that I served in, I lived in Korea for a year, the 2nd Infantry Division. And then I went back another 5 times for some training. Dan and I were in the same camp together, different years, a little camp that normally people don't even know about. A little place called Camp Hovey, and he was stationed there as well. So that was a good starting point of our conversation. And it's leading into just a wonderful relationship that I am happy for. And again, I'm really proud and humbled at his endorsement as well. You know, it's really good to be here in this area, amongst fellow patriots. And I think that's so important when I say that word. It's not used often enough. I'm honored to be here tonight. And again, thank you for the invitation. The barbecue I was at a couple of weeks ago in that park, in that area as well, it just really makes you feel at home. You don't get that so much in Santa Cruz and in the Monterey areas. You don't get that at all. That sense of freedom and friendliness and just openness and cleanliness is not so much, and that just shows the work I have to do. But places like that, if we continue on, we'll make California great again. Just from this area as setting it as an example in my district. And together, all of us, and I'll speak this a few more times because I'm going to use the word Army in my speeches, but together we will retire John Laird. Well, now I want to tell you a bit about myself, and I'll keep trying to keep that short because I don't want to go on and on and on about me. But I want to tell you about myself and why I'm actually running for state senate. I was born in Salinas, Monterey County, about 30 miles north of Soledad, where I currently reside. And I was raised in a little neighborhood called Baranda. Little Baranda was right on the outskirts of Salinas. And Baranda was a fun little diverse neighborhood. I heard that just to speak in neighborhood. It was a diverse neighborhood with all races and all cultures. There were Mexican, Filipino, African American, Puerto Rican, and white families there that I was raised with. And the great equalizer was poverty. Living in that neighborhood taught me the value of hard work. A lot of my summers were spent working in the fields, along with my family members. So it taught you the value of a dollar. It taught you the value of hard work as well. When I grew up in the heart, right in that area, the heart of the blue collar, where you work hard for what you do, you don't expect anything, and you just want to make a living and raise your family. My mother and father were instrumental in my life and teaching me basically why I'm here today. After my father passed when I was young, my mom raised me, and she raised me to two of the strongest values that I use today. The first one is always to speak up for yourself. And the second one is to never let anybody tell you you can't do something. And I ran with that. After I joined the military, you tell me I can't do something, I'll do it. I'll do it and I'll smile at you afterwards. And I'll share some stories about that as well. So at 18 years old, I followed my brother's footsteps. I come from a big military family. I had three older brothers that were already in the military. So I followed their footsteps and I joined the Army at 18. And I served the Army. I would have served a lot more. I was injured a few times, so I was discharged at that point. But I found my job. I didn't want to have any particular job, so I searched for a specialty job, and I went to the Special Forces. And I went into being a Ranger. And one of my greatest accomplishments was being a proud Airborne Ranger. And I talked to a couple of my fellow veterans here too, and I'm excited from all different branches that we all are. At the end of the day, we're all on the same team. That's for sure. So going back to the fact that when somebody tells you you can't do something, you know, I was selected out of a battalion of 400 soldiers. Myself and a friend of mine, Sergeant Chris Compton, we were selected to go through Special Forces survival training out in North Carolina. And at first I was like, whoa, why us? You know, read up about this survival course, and it was quite demanding. And we were 26 of 200 soldiers that went in that graduated. 26 of us graduated and came back to our unit. And when I got back, I come to find out that some of the soldiers there didn't think we can get it done. And Sergeant Compton and I just, nothing to, point them out like that, but maybe that was just a little bit of motivation afterwards, the fact that they said you couldn't do it. And I was like, okay. But during that time, while I was in Special Forces, in that training itself, I saw a lot of people quit. A lot of people got hungry. A lot of people just couldn't stand by the rigorous training they were going through. And I even saw Rangers quitting. I thought, wow, man, these guys, I thought to myself, were just elite soldiers, toughest of the tough. And I thought, man, it can't be that bad. So when I was a young private stationed at Fort Lewis, Washington, I was stationed at Lewis, Washington, and I was 18, and there is where the 2nd Ranger Battalion was at. And you got regular soldiers that are running around, and you got these guys all dressed in black, short haircuts, and they're sprinting. They're sprinting right down the road. And I'm standing there, youngster, looking at these guys run by. And my sergeant tapped me on the shoulder, right from behind me. He says, "Don't you worry, Virrueta, you'll never be a Ranger." I want to find him someday. Not to beat him up. Just to say, you know what, thank you. Thank you for putting that seed in me, and it grew. And I went on to graduate Ranger training. I think I was only about 50 of the 300 students that went into that training itself. But that was there. And that's something that I take those values, discipline, honor, self-starting, and responsibility that I take away from now that I use and apply today as a veteran and on my veterans road. So serving my country. Everybody's had different jobs. Honestly, that was the best job I ever had. Best job I ever had, and someone talked about ever doing it again. Yeah, knees aren't there anymore, my back isn't there anymore, but my heart is. And if I had a chance to do it all over again, sign me up. I'd go right back at it. It was the best job. Taught me so much. This kid from Baranda, from Salinas, I had only experienced limited travel. I think I went to Texas just one time, but the military afforded me some great places to travel. I've been all over the world. Guam, Fiji, Korea, Japan, Panama. Not necessarily a fun trip there. We went there for war, but different places. But I had a chance to see the entire world. And I'm just grateful to the military for sending me to these places and serving my country. And it was just wonderful to be out there with the Marines. So those are the things that just made me really proud. When I came back, honestly, it made me really proud to be an American and to have served my country. And it taught me a lot of values. It taught me God, loving to my family, and to serve my country. Proud of being American. One thing that I take away from my mom as well, she wanted to be American so much that in her 60s, I remember studying with her when I was young. I remember studying with her because she wanted to be an American citizen. And she did. I studied with her day after day, and I was so proud of her that time when she went on to become an American citizen. So that was just something as a milestone in my heart, and I'm sure at her age, she wanted to pass away as an American citizen, which made me really happy as well. My single greatest accomplishment, talked all about the military, blah, 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 all these great things, okay. My single greatest accomplishment is my wife, Cynthia. Cynthia and I met in high school, and was, 16 years old. That was about maybe 10 or 15 years ago, right? But Cindy and I met in high school, and we married when I was 18. My greatest accomplishment is being married to my wife for over 40 years. We celebrated our anniversary this past February. And I think the scary part is in March, when my son turned 40, I'm like, who's your dad? Can't be me, I'm too young. But her strength, I think, comes even from the military as well, because she held both roles while I was deployed. She was mom and she was dad. So it made her very, very strong as well in that. And we raised our 2 children, Tony and Teresa. We raised them to serve as well. My son's been a correctional officer for 18 years. And I knew at some point he was going to wear some sort of uniform, because he was wearing mine for Halloween when he was growing up. You make him tie on. So I knew he was going to wear a uniform. And at that point, and he is, and he's serving proudly in the corrections. My daughter, on the other hand, she wants to continue to serve. Anybody ever heard of CASA? It's okay. She is a court-appointed system advocacy. She's been with CASA in Monterey for about 10 years, and she's been their development director. And most recently, she moved to Texas and assumed the same role over there in Texas. So both their roles, I think, and I'm proud that Cindy and I raised them to continue to serve. So she's serving as well as a CASA director. And after the military, after all my accomplishments, I wanted to keep working. After I got out of my boots, I wanted to keep working in my community. And I'm a proud advocate of veteran service members and my brothers and sisters. I've helped them get some of their benefits that they work hard for. I've worked hand in hand with some of my brothers and sisters that serve to get their dutifully owned benefits. But there's more I can do. There's way more I can do than being a volunteer and helping there. And this is where I come into play to run for Senate for you all. I want to tell you about my nephew. My nephew, Eddie, being the youngest of 9 children. A lot of my nephews and nieces are pretty close to my age, so we're raised almost like brothers and sisters. My nephew, Edward, joined the Army, and he served proudly as an officer, actually, a chief warrant officer. And he deployed twice to Iraq, and he deployed twice to Afghanistan. And his second deployment in Afghanistan, he was a commander of an outpost in the Kandahar province of Afghanistan. And early on in the morning, a suicide car bomber blew out the side of that wall of the compound. And what Eddie did, he sent all the civilians to the back as a commander, and he sent the other soldiers to the back, and him and another sergeant turned around and engaged the insurgents. About 6 enemy insurgents came in with AK-47s. Eddie fought valiantly. And at the end of probably what seemed like an hour, only a couple of seconds later, the gunfire stopped. All 6 of the insurgents were killed. The sergeant was struck multiple times and he survived. My nephew did not. He paid the ultimate sacrifice for his country. I wanted to make sure I honored him and honored our other brothers and sisters who even served, who are still serving. What I did in Monterey County is I started a Veterans Day Parade, the Monterey County Veterans Day Parade. Myself and one of my best friends, who's a Marine, didn't know how to do anything to do with a parade. I'm a Ranger, he's a Marine. We can blow things up, but we can't do a parade, so we learned. And our very first year of our Veterans Day Parade, we had about 5,000 people attended. Wow. Old Town Salinas. And we had maybe 35 participants, and it was in the rain. And everybody was cheering, the bands were going, and everybody was very excited. Fast forward to last year, it has grown to the largest parade in Monterey County. We had over 25,000 people in Old Town Salinas. And we had about 150 participants. That is the day, Veterans Day, that we have this parade. It is there to honor our service members who have served, our service members who are still serving, and especially to honor, like my nephew Eddie, those who paid the ultimate sacrifice for our freedom that we so cherish today to be here tonight. I want to advocate for you. I would like to continue to serve my district in running for Senate. I will take action. I will get things done. I will make changes, and I'll make our voices heard. So I want to go into a couple of things that are really getting my attention. Because these past few months, I've been talking and listening to parents. Being a leader is important, because I can be up here like I am, just doing a lot of talking, but being a leader, even when I was in the military or even afterwards, is listening. Listening to everybody. That way, when you do talk, you can have the proper information and the feedback that you've heard. And I've been listening to a lot of parents out there who are just plain out worried what's being taught to their children, word is being said to them. A lot of these parents nowadays, with today's unfortunate economy, it takes mom and dad to work all day long. And these kids are being taught certain things, so it worries me. And it really hits home for me, because I have 6 grandkids that are going to public schooling. I want to know what they're being taught. My daughter and my son as well. I look into these youngsters' eyes, and I can't help but to see myself as a grown-up. I can't help but to see myself. I go to these high schools. I go to a lot of high schools, and I talk to some of the NJRTC cadets. I make it in Monterey County and Santa Cruz County. I talk to these high school seniors, and I don't share them. I don't try to recruit them into the military. I just want to tell them about myself and the choices I made in my upbringing and where I'm at. And I look at these young men and women, and I ask them, what do you want to be? Some will say a doctor, some will say a Marine, some will say a welder, different things. But with a proper education, a good quality education, they can indeed have their future. They can have indeed. After all, they are our future. I'm retired. They're the ones who are going to run our country someday, and they deserve the best education as can be. Inflation. We were just talking about that. I'm just pretty happy they just raised the gas taxes again. Wow. I don't even know where to start there. We're being burdened by the Sacramento taxes, regulations, and fees, and it's strangling our families, strangling a lot of people that I know that are struggling. It's almost impossible to rent, or let alone buy a home. In Salinas, for instance, I talked to a young man who just graduated from Fresno State, and his and his wife, she graduated from college, she works out in Monterey. And in Salinas, they're renting a 1-bedroom apartment. The 1-bedroom apartment is costing them $2,500 a month. That's over some people's mortgages. Not to mention, he can't even start a family at that point. And that's something that we need to get around. That's got to stop. That's definitely got to stop. Additionally, many business owners are struggled by PAGA laws that they have and union restrictions. And these changes need to be made in Sacramento. This is where I come into play. It's not going to be a switch. There is no magic pill. It's not going to be that. It's going to just take this drastic change. It's going to take this gradual change. And that's why I'm going into this office as well. I remember growing up in my neighborhood, and you probably all remember, right after school, after my chores and my homework, I was able just to run around all afternoon until the sun came down, until mom called you home and it was time for dinner. Safe. We can't do that anymore. Our kids can't do that anymore. Someone has to supervise them. We are just too lackadaisical on these crime laws. And we have to tighten up these laws on these criminals. I mentioned that my son's an officer. He works outside of the prison walls. He's on a SWAT team as well. And what really frustrates him is when he goes out and arrests these criminals, murderers, felons, all the work and the safety that goes into play to arrest these men or women. Take them in, book them, put them in jail. And you know what? Because of the soft laws, by that afternoon, they're back out on the streets. Can't do that. We just can't do that. And this has to stop. This has to stop. Homelessness. In the 2020 census, California has 1.8 million former service members that are homeless. This is something that we need to work on. We need to work on them. We need to work on more mental health resources. And sometimes the homelessness are for different reasons. For a lot of different reasons, whether it's bad on luck or different things. But make no doubt about it, sometimes they're out there and they're committing crimes and they're addicted to substances. So they need that mental health. We need to get them back out. We need to get them off the streets. You know, it's unsafe out there. It's hazardous to the community, hazardous even to the lands out there. I believe we have more similarities than differences. When I go out into the community, I'm talking to all the Republicans, I'm talking to the Democrats, and when they hear what I have to say, there's a lot of things that we want the same. Crime, harder on crime, inflation. education, they do that. We want quality education in safe neighborhoods for our families. And my challenge to you all is to tell everyone you know, your friends, make sure that they vote, make sure that their voice is heard. When I hear people and I'm hearing their voice and they're telling me that they want me to be their voice, go out and vote when you get those ballots. If you don't, it's like I'm talking without this microphone being on. It goes absolutely nowhere. So that's just the importance of voting. Lastly, as you know, well, you'll find out in these next month into next year. I have the energy, I have the drive, and I do have the dedication to win this race next November. But you know what? I can't do it alone. The military taught you it takes an army. I need you to be part of that army to help me win this race. There's a motto that the Rangers had that started in World War II during the invasion of Normandy. And the motto was Rangers lead the way. I will lead the way to Sacramento. I want to read a quote from you from the book of Isaiah 6:8. And it says, "Then I heard a voice of the Lord saying, whom shall I send? And who will go for us? And I said, here I am, send me." Talking to Jason earlier, we were just talking about the gift of life today and how blessed we are to be here today. And it is a gift, and what we do to make this the best for us. I can't help but just I definitely have to thank the Lord for this here, me being here. There's a reason why I survived these appointments. My job isn't done. There's a reason why I'm here, and there's a reason why it's to work. There is this calling that I have to run for Senate. Philippians 4:13. I can do all this through him who gives me the strength. Thank you very much.
All right, don't move. We got some questions. I'm sure we got some questions. Let me grab a microphone down here. Oh, water. Get a little water, yeah. Very good. Okay. Okay, we got some questions. Who wants to ask a question? All right. All right. First question.
Gotta ask it because I've gotta know it. How do you stand on life, pro-life, or?
Well, California has the California Supreme already has that law in place. And that's pretty much the stand that we have in this right now for California as it is, ma'am. And that is to have a choice for these women to have that. It is a law currently in California.
You won't fight it?
Well, at the district, there's something I need to obviously do a lot more research on. And at that point, then I'll make that decision when I'm in Senate. You're welcome, ma'am.
Any other questions? I gotta have some more questions.
I have one. Thank you for your welding job.
I welded some lawn art for her.
Yes, I'd like to know what your stand is on the teaching of our children of the gender so-called changes of it.
I think I touched upon it earlier when I even use my grandkids as an example. I think it's a parent's right to be talking to their children, not teachers, not people that work there. It's mom and dad's right. It's your responsibility to do that, no one else.
I have a thing here, the LGBTQ, it stands for Let's Get Biden to Quit.
I'll clap to that.
I think the Democrats are working on that. We got another question over here.
What are your feelings about the proposed closure of the Diablo Canyon nuclear power plant? And what, if anything, can you do in the state legislature?
Well, that's something that I need to do some research on myself. You know, that's obviously something farther down here. I would love to do some research on it, and definitely when I see you in a couple of weeks, I will have that answer. I promise.
Thank you.
Okay, along with the Diablo Canyon thing, just for the record, I worked out there for 20 years, okay?
Okay?
It is safe, best way to go.
All right.
But that leads to the question of the wind farm in the ocean. That's gonna be a big part of your district and for most of the people I know, we do not want it.
You know, I read about that, and I read about that, and I'm just brushing up more on. So we have so much land, I think, in these hills that they possibly can put some of those wind turbines on. Why they want to put them out to the ocean, I don't know. I don't know. And I think it would be more harmful, potential chemical spilling and so forth into the ocean itself. So yeah, I don't know, you know, why they find the normalcy of that there to put out into the ocean, which is already clean as it is.
What's your background after you got out of the military, between then and now?
Great question. Great question. Well, once I got out of the military, I went to college. And when I was going to college, I started working at a winery at part-time during the weekend. And I fell in love with that. And eventually with this family business, I went into selling their wine. And I eventually worked almost 12 years with a company called Southern Wine and Spirits, selling wine and spirits. It was fun because I applied some of the same tools that I grew up with, honesty and responsibility, working with my customers. And so I did that for about 12 years as a salesman, and I was promoted into a district manager overseeing that using my leadership skills. But it was, I shouldn't say it was easy, but at the same time though, when I applied the same ethics that I had in honesty towards my customers, I excelled at it as well. You're welcome.
All right, any more questions? Here we go.
Nope. I'm a little uncomfortable with your first answer to the first question.
Okay.
If a vote came up to do away with abortions in the state, would you vote for that?
I'd have again, there's more that I need to do research on. There's personal reasons why I have that, and right now I'm just relying on currently what the California law states.
So you would go along with the law then as it is?
Well, at this point, sir, we have to. It is the law, and until it comes up to change, and at that point, I would research to see where my decision would be, sir. It is a touchy subject for everyone. I do understand that, but at this point now, we could just rest to say that is currently the law with the California Supreme Court.
Thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
All righty, let's see. Any more questions? Okay, I have a question.
You know, this is good. Y'all made me do some homework. Thank you.
There we go. You need to do homework on all these questions. First of all, the Tea Party stands for, there's basically three things that brought the Tea Party together. And it was the wasteful overspending of the government, the fact that corporations were stifling free markets by working with the government to push out small businesses and other businesses. And they were the overreach. In 2008, we saw a huge overreach of the federal government into areas that they'd never gone before. So the Tea Party sprung up out of that. So we stand for three things. It's free markets. We like the markets to be fair. I mean, we don't mind regulation as long as it's fair and straightforward. And fiscal responsibility, that the government doesn't spend more than it takes in. And a constitutionally limited government where the government stays within its legal boundaries.
Jason, I'm all about limited government. I mean, that's something that they have their hands too far into, and it is strangling the small businesses.
So my question is on those three topics. They have always seemed to me to be nonpartisan, and you're running as a Republican.
Yes, sir.
How are you going to get those three fundamental ideas across to as many people as possible to understand that if we stand for those three ideals, it benefits everybody?
It benefits everybody. It benefits the small business owner. And it actually hurts the small business owner who can't survive by all this additional money that the Democrats propose. I will do it step by step. As I mentioned before, there is no switch to make this happen. And one thing that I've always found that's special is when you bring personal stories in place, when you bring personal experiences. Some of my family members are small business owners, and some of them have went out of business. You know, use those personal stories and hopefully to get the attention of my fellow Senate members.
Yeah. Any more questions? You got one more?
I got a statement to make.
Statement, not a question. Only taking questions right now. Here you go.
Yes, it's not a question, it's a statement. My son is in the Air Force, but he was attached to a Ranger battalion for quite a while. And he's been to Iraq and Kurdistan and Kuwait and South Korea. And he'll be out of town during the election, but it'll be mail-in ballots, so I'll make sure that he votes for you. You get a 2 for 1.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You know, when someone said earlier, as far as going back in, you know, my days, those are long past me, but some of the best time I ever had in my life. And I am so grateful to be able to qualify myself as an airborne ranger, as your son is probably experiencing right now.
Yeah.
You run hard and they run fast, but they're the tip of the spear, sir.
Well, actually, he's sitting on top of a volcano in Hawaii.
Okay.
That's his latest assignment.
But then that's not too bad.
Yeah, it's gonna change again, but still, he's enjoying himself.
You get the good ones and you get the good ones and tough ones. That's part of
right.
that's part of their career process.
Yeah,
He earned it,
yeah, that's right.
ma'am.
I just thought of something else that Peter brought to mind. What is your feeling on mail-in ballots as opposed to one day, voter ID, vote right there?
That's an easy one. The responsibility and accountability for voter IDs is so important. You've seen what's happened with the mail-in ballots. You've seen the disgrace and the indiscrepancies. I think it has to go right back to that. Right back to looking at a person's face and doing that. That's what I was taught when I was 18 years old. They marched us over to the polling stations. There's my answer.
Is there any way we can get everybody to be registered before they can vote?
I think it's their responsibility it's to register. Isn't that
It's
it?
not a law, evidently.
Well, isn't that? I mean, I'm thinking way back now, but when we first got our driver's license, didn't we have to register? To register, Jason?
Men did, not women.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Service,
No, I meant to register to vote.
It's an option.
Wow. Then I think it should be a responsibility. I think it's as Americans, it's our right to have a voice, and that is why we have a vote to begin with.
But there are so many that vote that aren't registered. It's just
And that-
not right.
Also dead people that vote.
Yeah.
It's not mandatory.
Yeah, I'll speak to that. It's our right, it's our responsibility, but the government has no role in forcing anybody to vote. So when they send out a ballot to someone who isn't registered or who hasn't decided to vote, that's the government overstepping their boundaries.
And that goes right back to when folks want to, because I'm doing a lot of listening. Doing a lot of listening to what these folks, and if you want to have a complaint, you want to know why it's this, why your gas is that, or why your schools are here. And I just tell them, I'll listen to them and hopefully give them some sort of advice. But the biggest thing I'll tell them is then you need to make sure you're registered and make sure you vote.
Yes.
You have to, you know, and if not, it just makes no sense even complain.
Right.
Because no one's listening and you're not being heard.
One more?
When I took my driver's license, when I took the test,
When I took my test, it said your vote Republican, Democrat, or Independent. It's right there. So you're saying
I
that
think
we
that's
don't have to, but we do.
Loopy, I think that's identifying yourself at the DMV itself, but as far as actual registration, I'm not positive. I'm not positive. It's been so long for me.
I think
Do you know?
I think it does.
When I last had to take my test, I took the test and then it said similar to what you said, and it had me down as Democrat.
What?
Oh, it's the ballot.
I went back to my
Sorry, they change
Here we go.
So I had to fight it to get
Now we're not
myself
talking.
back to a Republican.
Yeah, we're on.
Okay.
We're in a discussion group.
Yeah, this is a great topic that just got brought up. I had 7 women in my Republican group who we got the GOP database, and when they went in to either renew a vehicle registration or renew their driver's licenses, they were then told when they went to vote that they were no longer Republican, they were now Democrats. What can the legislature do to change that within the DMV?
We have to change it. Make no doubt about that. And
These were lifelong.
I can't speculate to why it got changed. I don't know enough about that. But if it did, not by our own choice, then it needs to be
Right.
changed.
Yeah.
Definitely. I'd be the first
Are you
one.
making a list?
And excuse the term, ladies, but I'd be the first one to get pissed off. You know?
Yeah, they were, I mean, some of them called crying, they were devastated. These were lifelong Republicans from the time they were 18 or 19, and now they're in their 70s and found out they were Democrats.
My wife and I keep an eye on ours every single time. We definitely look at that.
And Jordan Cunningham was a sitting assemblyman, and it happened to him.
Wow. You know, it's funny, but it's not funny. And that's why we have to be vigilant, you know, when looking at our information. It's up to our responsibility not to assume anything. You feel that belly turn in, wow. It was something completely different. But it makes us be vigilant and to tell our neighbors as well.
And now I'm not 100% sure it was switched to Democrat. It might have been declined to state, but
Yeah, God forbid it be turned to a Republican.
as sitting assemblyman, that's, you know, that's, you should pretty much, and that goes to show that the motor voter laws were designed to make it easier for people to register to vote. But what it does is it puts voter registration in the hands of DMV employees, which I have not met anybody who really believes that they're doing an outstanding job. I've met a couple people who say, yeah, they did fine, but for the price, boy. Now, I want to ask a real quick question while Tony's here, because this is going to be a really good visual. If we voted tomorrow, if we had on the ballot to eliminate the DMV, just get rid of it, just mothball it and get rid of it, who here would object to that?
It's supposed to work.
And put one in
Who would
place.
take it over?
And what do you mean put what in place?
It's a tough question, yeah.
You mean registering as a Republican or Democrat?
No, the whole DMV system, just remove it. Well, you can register your car with an app. I mean, it would take nothing to
Also
set
get
up,
rid of the brick and
but get
mortar.
rid of the whole DMV system. Who would object to that? See, so for the amount of money we spend on the DMV, I don't see a whole bunch of people crying that it would go away, so.
I'd rather see the Department of Education gone before the DMV.
How about we do a coin flip, and whoever comes up heads goes first, and right after that, the second one.
Wow. Hey,
Tony doesn't know what to do with me.
no, you know what? And this is exactly where I want to be. Exactly hearing what and I'm learning. It's exactly what you voters are talking about. And hearing these important conversations. This is going to make us better. This is going to make me a better candidate. It's going to make me a better senator when I get to Sacramento, because I'm listening to you. And it all works. There's no ruffling of any feathers whatsoever. This is great. This is great to hear from all of you.
Well, then keep Diablo open. If they provide 8% of the power for you in California, and we need it really bad, especially when those yahoos want everybody to drive electric cars. You know, it's stupid. So we need power.
She made a good point. You're running against John Laird. He's a 3-time incumbent.
He won in 2020, and is the first time, right, Brian?
He's been in the assembly for
He's been in the assembly,
Decades.
He's a career politician, first time in Senate, and that's something that, you know, I look at that, you know, too long. Too long. It's time for a change. It's time for, you know, a fresh voice, and that's why I'm running. John knows I'm running by now. He's got to know I'm coming after him, and I hope he's worried, you know, because
John Blair done that is not, that is questionable. I've not heard his name. What?
he's there.
Oh, he's there.
You know, it's one of those representatives that nobody knows him, but he's
always getting those votes.
It's like, who's that guy?
Kind of like
So-
Wallace Caps was.
Yeah, that's not a good thing.
Who cares?
Okay.
Okay.
I think
We finished up on all the questions. Any other questions? No? All right.
So folks, before I wrap up, I just want to make sure you all, when you came in, there is literature up there for you to please take. There's a biography there. If you really want to fall asleep, take a look at that, read it for a while. It'll put you to sleep and tell you about some of the wild things I did. But at the same time, though, there's endorsement papers, and there's also donation envelopes you see fit to donate towards my campaign. What I really want to do is thank you all. Thank you all for taking the time tonight to listen to me. Thank you, Jason, again for inviting me. This has been so refreshing to be here in this comfortable area, in this comfortable territory. Thank you very much.
Also see him at TonyForSenate.com.
TonyForSenate.com, the whole word spelled out. TonyForSenate.com. We've got a great website that'll tell you about upcoming events. I'll be back on the 19th, Randall. Be back on the 19th and to speak again. So I really look forward to it. Hopefully they'll see some familiar faces as well. Thanks.